So I want to talk today about the sacred exchange. And last week we talked about connecting to spirit, and so this is kind of like a continuation. And the sacred exchange is understanding that there is always this flow in life. But it's like as you give, you receive. As you receive, then we give, right? But the sacred exchange is not just about receiving and giving. It's opening ourselves up to be part of life and to be part of that. And if you can give me the first slide. So Mark 4:24, the measure you give will be the measure you get back. So, and we talk a lot about that in unity too. We talk about it with our thoughts and how we act, and right? So what we do comes back. But it's also as we give, what we give comes back to us in the same way that we put it out. So let me just use an example. Back in the day in my life when I lived and held on to poverty like it was some reward, okay, or treasure. I owned it, right? So I would not necessarily pay my bills until much late. So I was always having to pay late fees. And this happened for many years because I didn't know if I was going to have enough money for something else, right? I was always worried, and it was always like that. And because you didn't know, right? We just didn't know what might happen. But so there was a fear process that I had, this fear that I had that God knows that I don't have any money, right? And that I don't have any to give, or it's okay if I don't write my bills right now. And you know, credit cards, 29% interest, and you're making a payment to not go anywhere, right? But it was this fear, right, that of not having. It was this fear of not having, and that I needed to protect what was mine, right? And you know, I don't know if any of you, but if you ever say, I work hard for my money. It's don't mess with my money. Don't get between me and my money, right? We can be like that because we work hard for our money, right? And it's again, that's why one of my affirmations for the last several years, like I don't know, 20, has been thank you God, I'm able to play, right? So shifting that energy. But what happens is if we are afraid to pay our water bill, and we're doing it with this great fear, and our hands are shaking as we're doing that, right, of signing that check or putting it or waiting till like 3 days or whatever. When we have that fear, anything that comes back to us shows up in our lives, comes up the same way. So the more things I feared, the more things I would get to fear, right? Because that was how it happened. And so I had to learn, and I'm just going to say, and I was going to Unity, wasn't getting the message. Now, it wasn't mean they weren't giving it to me. There was just a block between, you know, at my neck. Everything stopped, you know, at my neck. That's what I have a friend that will say, it just stops it, doesn't go past. And so when we are fearful of especially of our finances or where we're at, because I mean, how many people have thought, I will never ever be able to retire, I will never be able to stop because I won't have money to live on and I don't want to live under a bridge, right? And so it's like, we don't even leave room for ourselves for anything, right? And if it's like, so for me, with having 3 children, and I had a husband, not Rick, but another husband, and then he had horses and he had dogs and stuff like that. I had to choose between buying dog food or hay as opposed to getting new shoes, right? And so we don't allow that space. So what does this have to do with sacred? What does this have anything to do with sacred exchange? Are we honoring ourselves, and are we trusting in faith that Spirit will provide for us and move and clear that way for us? And we have to train a new muscle that we have. We have to train ourselves to believe in something that from our reality is like so untrue. Am I making sense? Because this will, well, God knows how it is. God knows what I'm dealing with, you know. And then we say, well, and God's not helping and God's not taking care of whatever. Well, yes, God is. God's giving us exactly where we are aligned in that sacred energy. So Spirit loves us so much that He gives us heartache. That He gives us grief. Because that is where we are in our alignment with. Even though in our mind we don't want it, right? We don't want it. We don't want to believe it. We have a hard time. And we can say, well, you know, I'm on a fixed income, right? And when we take ownership of a fixed income, that means that we aren't open to getting a penny more, to getting $1 more, that it's fixed, that it's fixed. And then if we have that little bit set aside, so I've got $10 at the end of the month for gas or whatever, something would happen to me that would cost exactly that amount of money that I was holding on to. Like if usually it was like a tire would go out on the car, which is not $10. Or, you know, the starter would go out on the car, or there would be some unexpected thing. And I was in this place of constant worry and stress. In that moment, and I can't tell you that precise moment where He changed, but what I did was, again, when God speaks to me like Dad, and that's how I'll say it, like it's a direct thing, like do this, I go, okay, okay. And I probably had been praying really hard for a resolution or a solution. And what I heard was, sit down and pay the bills that are due now. No, you don't know what that means. And it's like, I do. I do know what it means. But that moment that I sat down and I did that, and then I started doing that every month, I never ran out of money. Because I put the faith in that. But it was, again, at that moment of being receptive, and I had been doing a lot of praying on it, right? And asking, okay, you know. And of course, I had to have my come to Jesus meetings with God because God's not doing it my way, right? Yeah, you get that, right? But it's like, what's going on here? So it's like giving that up. But too, when we start to engage in these inner conversations, these sacred conversations, we start to be able to start to learn how to hear and how to receive, right? But the moment I started doing that, money just kind of came in, and it came in in these weird ways that I can't explain it. But it was also in that moment for me a release. It was also, I was guided to step forward to do what my gifts are. And when it was just like this amazing opportunity. It just was this amazing, but this flow was there. And so I trusted, but it was a long time for me to trust it because I'm living off of my reality in this world, but which is also outside of the divine, because the divine is all around and through us, but the divine is going to mirror to us that which we believe we are, what we're worthy of, and what we are under the belief of, which is an illusion of limitation. And it's energy. It's energy. And we are energy. And this energy can come in these wonderful ways. And it's understanding that money and our choices are all based on this energy of how we move. And it's like where we end up is all based on a series of choice, moment to moment to moment to moment. Each thing that we choose to do. And where we're at right now was based on those series of choices. And have you ever had those moments where you wondered, like, what would have been different if I'd have gone this way? And it would have been a whole different series because you would have had a whole different thing with bits. And so where you're at is where you chose to be, but how it also showed up and how other people showed up in that based on those choices. But there's a sacredness that we need to look at within ourselves. That sacred exchange is saying, okay, I can look in the mirror and smile really big and say, hello, God. Hello, Goddess, whatever hello, Sam, if that's what you call God, whatever that energy is. But looking at it directly, seeing that within you. Seeing that you are that co-creator, that you are that, but that I love you, I value you, I see you, and I am willing to move forward and trust that you are going to do what is right for me. But it's like, it's an exercise. It's applying faith. And faith is not tangible. Wouldn't it be nice if it was, because then we know what it feels like, right? But it brings tangible results. But faith is believing that we already have what we don't currently have, of seeing that as starting to manifest. And Jesus would say that, like, can you not see the field is ripe for harvest? Can you not see that this is done? And one of the things that Jesus was teaching us is that we had the power to, through energy, to recreate our life, to recreate and to move our energy forward. But it's like, when Jesus turned the water into wine at a wedding, and his mother came and said, they're out of wine. And so I like to think of it as Jesus is like, and he's kind of saying, well, I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Because do you know what that's going to do if I do this? And she's kind of saying, to me, it's like, get over yourself. This is what you're here to do. And if not now, when? And so when he did it, it's again, he knew he knew what he was connected to. He knew who he was. And he knew that was that right time to move forward. And there were others that knew. And again, the guest said, why did you say the best wine for the last, right? And it was because, again, Jesus shifted that. He shifted that energy. And so this is about alchemy, right? The alchemy of energy, the shift in our energy to open up. So the next one, forgive and you will be forgiven. Give and it will be given to you. So you remember me telling you to come to Jesus meetings with God? Mm-hmm. This is about forgiveness. And unforgiveness can be that thing that keeps us from moving forward. It could be that you're still mad at a brother from 13 years ago or whatever. You just can't seem to move. And that place of forgiveness frees us from those blocks that we have. And as we start to forgive, we will get more things will come up to say, oh, that I'm still holding on to that. Okay. But it's like it can be easier to work out, right? But that forgiveness opens that energy up for that giving and that receiving. And understand, so when I talk about our finances, and I'm talking about writing checks, and you're like, okay, I have to, I can't do it right now because I might not have money for groceries or baby food or whatever it was that I might need, and in fear, right? That I was also angry that I was in a place of holding a resentment that I didn't have the money that I needed. And so learning to forgive that I am living in limitation. Learning to forgive that it's not the credit card people's fault that I spent the money that they gave me ahead of time as a gift to use, right? But have you ever been there again where that resentment was building up? And that's a state of needing forgiveness, of needing to open up that energy, of needing to allow the new energy to come in. And, in the Lord's Prayer, so hallowed is thy name. Hallowed means to carve out sacred space. So when we say hallowed is thy name, one of the things is that we are saying is, I am taking the I am, the divine God, and the Christ, and I am putting in this sacred space. I am leaving room for God and this really great space over my fears and my ego. Make sense? You know? And it's like, but have you ever been so afraid you get that lump in your throat and you can't swallow and you want to cry, and it's like, oh my gosh, I got to go get 20 jobs. No, it's like, and we had a store, and I think I maybe told you, but we were working hard, not getting anywhere, and I decided I didn't have to work hard to be poor. I could go fishing and be poor, so we can close the store, right? And again, what we do, that freed up a lot more, and it wasn't that it just wasn't the thing for us at that time. But that realization, well, I don't have to work to be poor. I can just go home and have a lot more money. It's fun, you know? It's in that, so it's giving ourselves permission to look at it differently, but to forgive. So it's like when we feel like we aren't getting enough of our supply, we get resentful. When we're not getting the help that we need, we feel resentful. And that resentment is an energy that comes back to us about the help that we're not getting. And so therefore, forgiveness is a part of that, and of opening up and of moving and shifting that energy. Any comments, questions? Yes.
So it just occurred to me the courage that you had to make that decision, and what came to me was the fact that you probably didn't listen to maybe what other people said about you closing that store. Like to be the courage of like doing stuff that you know that you have to do and not worrying about what other people think. Because sometimes something like that can really hold this back. When we have business decision, we need to do something, right, where other people are giving their opinions, and you've said this before, you just have to say thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Yeah, but so it was, and not only did we close the store, we had a monthly publication that was a metaphysical publication, and it wasn't making any money, and we were carrying it, but everybody loved it and had it. But we closed both of those at the same time, and people would say, well, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I just can tell you what we're not going to do, right? In a nice way, but it's too, sometimes when you're in what I'm going to call a new thought / new age environment, and you're really working with people in that environment, a lot of times and especially this time the law of attraction was really out, they really thought that they didn't have to participate in anything. They could just ask and he'd give it. And so they would expect us to give them a promotion for free for a workshop that they're charging $500 for per person, and not want to pay for an ad, or in the store we actually would have people say, I'm practicing the law of attraction, would you gift that to me? No?
They're recent out.
No, right. And so it was like learning that. So it's, again, this is where education comes in, and learning that shift with that energy. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't here for last week, but based on some of the stuff you said today, just what came to me when you were talking about the holding the separate space and having faith is we get mixed up like in the physical, and that's how we, lose that connection. Also, the physical conditions us to work and then be rewarded. And that's the opposite of faith. Faith is, I'm going to be rewarded regardless.
Right.
And I think that's more of a distraction from, what causes more of a separation.
Right.
Between forgetting the divine influence.
And I agree. And so in our metaphysical Bible study the last couple of weeks, when we're talking about the comparison of the Old Testament to the New Testament. And so many people are more still into the Old Testament. Jesus was teaching a freedom way, right? But still people will follow those literal stories in there. So it's like, so here's the Old Testament. And there was between 12 and 1,500 years between Moses and Jesus. Wow. And how long's there been between Jesus and us, right? But so here they are on one side, crossing over, and then Jesus is on the other side of the bridge. And what Jesus was teaching, when you look at how things are and how strong traditional Christianity is, nobody is crossed. There's not a lot of crossing the bridge. Our bridge, I would love to see the bridge congested with people moving to what Jesus was teaching us. So this is old stuff. It has been, and it has been, and it has been, and it's opening ourselves up to faith. And I like how you shoot that. Yes, Pastor Lordy?
So the person that you wanted, you talked about the person who was doing law of attraction, and so they felt that, it's law of circulation is what you're talking about. So to circulate, you've got to be part of that circle. You've got to be giving to receive.
It's not a one-way street.
No, it's not. It's not. It is, but it's learning how to give that. And it's, again, when we are in our place of limitation and we're in our panic of limitation or worry. To me, worry is limited, right? It's a limitation. It's not a trust. It's really hard to not be in that place and allow ourselves to move forward. But if I could move too, when we had a school and would have this one particular lady come in, and I'm just going to use the term that she would borrow things from the store, but she would leave weird things like a seashell with a wad of hair and a cigarette. Like that was her gift back. So I can say she had problems, but she, in her mind, was really an exchange. It's not the right kind of exchange, but that was always interesting when she would come in. But it's that we have to have that exchange. An exchange, it can be the faith, right? The faith of knowing, the faith of moving forward in that. Any last question or comment? Okay, got three of you on. Go ahead, Tommy.
Is this an easy thing to do?
No. No.
Why you want me to do it if it's not easy?
Because I want you to have I want you to feel good about your life. I want you to know that you are a co-creator, that you have this wonderful ability to have your dreams fulfilled. And here's the thing is that in this world that we live in, money is an exchange of energy. It's called currency. So think of the currency of energy that runs, right? And that without money, we don't have the opportunity for spiritual growth because we might have to pay for a class, or we want to take a yoga class, or we want to become a yoga teacher. Those things require an investment. And when we open ourselves up and just say, okay, I'm willing to test it. So, here's my thing is give spirit a chance and say, okay, I'm giving you 7 days. All right? But I'm putting my faith. Now, if something doesn't happen in 7 days, you have to look and you have to say, okay, was I holding the faith, or was I talking about, that's not going to happen? Was that not going to happen? Because, it takes the same amount of energy to walk $5 as it does $50, right? It's the same amount. But it's like, and I put on our Facebook page the other day a meme. I wrote it, but it was like, it's like energy. It's like the universe is like putting in an order, like for pizza or Amazon. You put your order in, and then you just know it's going to be delivered. And that, Jessica.
So you had resentment towards someone, and you're trying to go through a forgiveness. Do you actually have to physically speak to them about it, or is it only with them?
No, you do not have to physically speak to them about it. Now, if you're guided to have a conversation. But in some cases, people are dead, right? But it's like you give yourself permission to forgive them. And if it's a parental figure, see them in your mind and say, I love you, but I'm going to abandon and betray you now. I am going to move forward and do the things that are right for me. And I know all that you were trying to teach me was how to be happy, but this will make me happy. And then have him say to you, we forgive you and we want you to be happy. It's a wonderful exercise that we can use, but here's the thing. How do you know if you've forgiven or not? I'm a pro at this. It's like if I'm practicing the forgiveness and I'm saying, God, okay, God, help me forgive so-and-so for blah, blah, blah. And then I get into the whole darn story.
Yes.
And how they really ticked me off. That, okay, I haven't forgiven. I still need to work on that. And sometimes the saying, Spirit, help me, I am willing to learn how to forgive. And it's being kind to yourself, right? It's about being kind to yourself as well. But to look and see, so think of it, each thing that we carry of unforgiveness, think of it as a garbage bag tied around our feet with garbage in it. So if we have 15 of those, how far can we get without, So it's a process, but the willingness can make a difference.
That's a whole nother service.
That's a whole nother service, that's right.
So I was reading verse 6, and
Paul Hasselbeck?
yes,
Yeah.
and so he was saying, unity is not about positive thinking. Unity is about responsive thinking. So you have to have that faith added to the
Yeah.
affirmations to make it work.
Yeah, because to see it, because you can think it in your head, but if you're not changing the action and you're not moving that forward. Anything else? Yes.
I used to like budget monthly, and I was in a program where they would recite the Lord's Prayer, the part where it said, "Give us our daily bread," and it just dawned on me that it doesn't say, "Give us our monthly supply." I had to rely on, do I have what I need right now? Yes, okay, and not fit into that kept me out of the monthly budget.
Right, or the future, right? It kept you present. Yeah.
The future. And it kept me, do I have what I have do I have what I need today? Yes. And it says, real. It's so simple putting it that way. It doesn't say, give me my monthly supply.
Right. It says, give me my daily bread.
Now, Rebecca, yes, ma'am, question, or what I just thought of was she was saying, we have wants and we have needs. So there's a big difference there between those two. If I've got things I need to eat and drink and sleep, maybe I don't need those 5 pair of new shoes I want to go buy. So there comes to our choices too.
It does. It does come to our choices, and it's kind of like it's like, well, do I want to pay the electric bill or if I love shoes, right? And if I don't pay the electric bill, it's not up to me to go to my mama, right? They didn't to pay the electric bill because it just let those shoes shine. But it is always a choice. And just remember that a desire that's put into you, a desire that has been going on and has a silent, strong, still voice, consistent, is the God voice speaking to you through that line of intuition. And that again, that voice is also going to tell you it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yes, ma'am.
One other thing I thought when she was speaking about the extreme for energy, I feel that sometimes it's not even extreme. And it was funny you said that you told the story about the lady leaving the shelf. Because that was your look store, But that's the kind, your thing may not be money, you know what I mean? But you may need grace in a certain space or, a schedule to align and putting out the energy to the positive energy and holding saber space frees up that energy for you to get what ye out of the
Right.
And what he spoke about it not being easy is I think alignment with TP, but being in alignment is
Walking the talk, living the faith, right? Yeah, living it.
as they keeping it.
Yeah, but the more that we do that, the more it's just the more grow, and we have this opportunity to do that. And right now, the world needs unity teachings, right? We are those shared givers, and it doesn't mean that we have to go stand on the street corner and preach about it. What it means is in our daily lives, how are we giving that exchange? And it's like, so when I go to a restaurant or at the grocery store, I tell people, thank you for being here. If somebody just walks by me and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're so pretty, I'll stop and say, you're pretty. I think people cry with that. So, but it's that change, but you never know where that's going to come from. So it's having the faith. All right, well, I'd appreciate the feedback and the sharing. really would like you to stay for the fireside chat so we can learn a little bit more about that. And until next time, namaste.